just kind of crazy. All right. So I'll just do a little intro and we'll get rolling. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Wendy Murdoch, and this is Webinars with Wendy. I've been doing a series of webinars during the pandemic to not only entertain myself, but to educate myself and those around me. I've invited a lot of my friends, and they're all really super cool people, and I know you've been enjoying these webinars quite a bit because they've been fascinating and really just, the time flies. It's just amazing. We've been working on a new project called SURE PAWS, which is the SURE FOOT Pads for dogs. And while it's not up on my website yet, so, you know, people are like, where can I get the SURE PAWS pads? Well, I'm still working on that. I don't really have anything in stock at the moment, but we will, and they will be available on the murdochmethod.com/shop. I wanted to take advantage of the fact that my guest today has been using SURE PAWS. She's been one of my beta testers, and she's also a dog groomer, a longtime friend. And she's also a 3-hoof surefoot practitioner. You can find out all about what a 3-hoof surefoot practitioner is on the Surefoot Equine website, which we've just recently launched. Today we're going to talk about using the same concept for dogs. So I'd like to introduce you to my dear friend, Suzi Zielinski, and I'll let her give you a bit of her background. Hi, Suzi.
Hi, Wendy. Hi, everybody. Excited to be doing this and excited to share a bit of what I've been experimenting with. I've been grooming dogs most of my life, showing dogs, and my mom was the dog person, and I got to do horses because I helped her with dogs. So I've been grooming dogs and had my own dog grooming shop for years and years, and working with horses. A long-time horse trainer friend that I worked with said, what you do in your life is what you do with your horsemanship. So I went, oh, I guess I better be doing the same thing with my dogs. So big changes happened, and that was the late 90s that happened, and met Wendy in the early 2000s, and she kept bugging me to become a Feldenkrais practitioner.
Well, yeah, that's right. I forgot that I drug you into that too.
And 5 years ago, I was living in Wyoming when I met Wendy in northern Colorado. And 5 years ago, my dad suffered a stroke, so I moved to San Diego to take care of him. I also, it opened an opportunity for me to start Feldenkrais training. So I just finished with my 4 years of Feldenkrais training.
So you're a graduate?
Well, we still have 2 weeks because Zoom, 2 weeks of Zoom only equals 1 week of a segment. So
okay,
we still have,
all right, but you're close. You're really close.
Yeah. We can practice now. So
yeah, but we can't because we can't like do physical contacts.
yeah, exactly. So
it's okay.
Anyway,
I'll get better.
It will. And while I've been in San Diego, I started grooming just to keep up those skills. And I enjoy grooming, not on a full-time basis. It's hard on the body, but
yeah. So that when I met you, it was, I don't know exactly, but it was the early 2000s, and you had also had a pretty severe riding accident too, which is kind of why I steered you toward the Feldenkrais.
Yes. Yeah. I've had quite a few mishaps, but that one had come off a horse and dislocated my right hip and fractured the pelvis and broke my back. So Feldenkrais has been pretty amazing. It's also quite a discovery of self.
Yeah, no, it's an amazing process. And it's, you know, over the 4 years, the thing that's so notable is how much people change through the process. I can remember in my training specifically, there was a woman who could not lay on the floor. She absolutely couldn't do it. And so they would have a table for her and everything. And by the end of, I think even the first year, she could lay on the floor, no problem. And so, you know, it's really, if anybody's ever thought about doing the Feldenkrais training, it's a pretty transformative experience, even if you're familiar with Feldenkrais before that, because I know, Susie, you used to do a lot of ATM awareness through movement at home.
Yeah.
And when I would come out, I know I would give you some Feldenkrais lessons. So before we get into the SURE Paws, I just have one question. Now that you've taken the Feldenkrais training, we're basically going to consider that you've finished it. Do you now understand the roots of SureFoot? Maybe understand it in a better way. I don't know why you did that.
Yes. You know, there's such depth to it. I mean, there is so much depth, and really waking the awareness of seeing so much happening in the horses, and bringing that into the dogs really woke me up to what exactly we put our animals through.
Yeah,
and
that's the thing, is that as you go through the Feldenkrais process, you start to discover it's all about discovering possibilities, right? That was what Feldenkrais's basis concept was for us to achieve our own potential by using our body as basically an experiment and learning new possibilities of movement. And you know, sometimes I don't realize how profound the Feldenkrais method has been on my life, because I've sort of, since '85, I've been exposed to it and have had lessons, and then of course did all the trainings. And so sometimes it's like, it's hard to think that there's another way to think, if that makes any sense. And so it's so, you know, when people ask me, well, how did you get started with SureFoot and where the idea come from? Well, it really came out of the Feldenkrais method, as did SURE Paws, because that's an extension of SureFoot. But sometimes it's just, you don't, it's such the way I think that I don't even, it's just an extension. Excuse me. Does that make, I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's taken everything to a way cooler, connected level of having the Feldenkrais background, and as a riding instructor and a horse trainer and a dog groomer, it's just opened my eyes a whole lot deeper. And the connection I have with the animals is unbelievable. It's wonderful. It really is.
That's great. So I can't remember, did you start using the horse pads with dogs, or did you not really start messing with it until you got the SURE Paws pads?
No, I started using the Physiopad.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Because a year and a half ago, I was hit by a car, and I was actually in the middle of a segment, and I couldn't go to that segment, my Feldenkrais segment. So I was in a lot of pain. And the ATMs, just visualizing ATMs is what saved me. And because physically it was really hard to move, and then just progressed. But you had said, hey, sit on your Physiopad, because driving was the hardest. So I started sitting on the Physiopad everywhere. It stays in the car all the time now. It's like my Physiopad. Cool. And then I got the full farrier's pad. So I went from the smaller Physiopad is what I started using with the dogs.
Right.
Then I moved into the farrier's pad, and then went to.
So just to clarify, she used the half Physiopad in her car, and then we call it the full Physiopad now, but it used to be called the farrier pad because originally we designed it for farriers, and that's the pad with the inch of hard material, the orange top with the gray bottom at ½ inch of medium, just to clarify.
Yeah, and then you shipped me to slants and a medium, and so I've been playing with those.
Cool. Yeah. And so just for people to understand, so what we did with we had people using the Horse SURE Foot pads with dogs, but what we found was the area was too small and the thickness was too great. So with the help of Felice Deppler in Switzerland, she's also Switzerland and Sweden, who was working with sled dogs, we decided to design the SURE PAWS pads. And so they come in large and small. Large is the same size as a full Physiopad. It's 24 by 16 by an inch. And the small is the same size as a half Physiopad, which is 16 by 12 by 1 inch. So they're only an inch thick. And they have the same colored top, and then you can flip it over so you have the underside. The one thing we did do with the colored top was we added something called soft sand to give it some grip, because we found when the dogs were on the horse pads that the colored surface was too slippery. So we're still, you know, like there are some pads available, and I have an order in for some large pads, but we're still working on a few ideas with them in terms of sort of connecting them together and that sort of thing, which is why we haven't really fully launched it. But so many people were interested after the last talk that we did a little bit about SURE PAWS that I thought it'd be nice to just kind of talk about how it was working with grooming, because Suzi's was sending me pictures and I was like freaking out because it was so cool. And I was like, okay, we got to get this on record so that it's there when we're ready, when we have the products available. So I know that people are going to go, where can I get a pad? Just email me at this point at wendy@wendymurdoch.com. I'll mention it again at the end. So I'm just trying to get the admin side out of the way, Suzi, so you can roll. So yeah.
Okay, great.
There we go.
Right. So I have pictures and videos.
Awesome.
And I'll start with some photos of the half physio.
Oh, great. And so how long ago did you start grooming when you were in California? I'm trying to remember now.
Oh, let's see. I think I've been there a couple of years. I just, with COVID, it was shut down. So
oh yeah, it's kind of gotten in the way of things. But basically, you've been grooming all kinds of dogs for your whole life, it sounds like. I mean,
all my life, yeah.
I don't really know you from the dog side because we've always interacted on the horse side. And then when you said you were grooming again, I was like, great. You can just...
Yeah. So this is a grooming shop that is also a pet store. It's not set up very user-friendly. It's noisy, so it's really hard on the dogs because of the dryer sound. I have everything muted, so I hope it comes out muted. So you don't.
Okay. If you start to play it and it doesn't, I'll tell you how to change the sound.
Okay. And so mostly what I have been doing is, just because they were really appreciative of me, I've just been doing Feldenkrais work on the dogs. But what happened with the pads allowed things to integrate a whole lot faster.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it really, I mean, it's really interesting. And it just opened me to be aware of injuries, of the biggest thing is their anxiety, because grooming is not easy. And also one thing that isn't always with groomers is to watch the dogs, to be aware of the dogs and notice the dogs. It's just taught basically how to groom a dog and how to bathe a dog and what needs to be done. So slowly things are changing in the industry where dogs are being considered like it is in the horse industry, you know, we're considering the dogs. So anyway, I'm going to go to my share screen.
Awesome. And yeah, well, good. I'll talk about that in a minute. Oh, cool.
Oh, the first two are, I have to brag about that one.
I was going to say you made a wedge. Either I sent you a wedge or you made a wedge. I'm not sure which.
Yeah, these were a wedge you had sent me in some prototypes, and we had taken a long drive. Actually, it was during the SURE Foot on the drive out to go to Colorado last summer. My daughter sat in this seat and it was so horrible. We put that wedge down and she said that's what made the drive bearable.
You know, I
thought I'd share that.
That's awesome. And I do have these prototypes of plants for car seats, and I've given out several and they never come back. And one of these days we'll get them in. And it's another project that, you know, we've got a few projects running around here. No lack of ideas.
Okay, this is Emma. She belongs to a close horse friend of mine, actually. Emma had a back injury a year and a half prior to this. This was last summer. And so I'd done her a few times. She had quite a bit of anxiety and really was not happy to go to the dog groomer. By the time we were, you know, well into how many times I did her, she was happy to come in. She'd come in wagging. She does positive reinforcement, and she's an agility dog. So
Cool.
this is Emma. You can see she's all happy sitting on her pad.
Yep, and she's on the medium side of the half Physiopad.
Yes. Yeah.
How common is it for dogs to have injuries that we don't notice or that go undiagnosed?
A lot. There's a lot of slip stifles, patella issues, and hip issues that most people don't know until all of a sudden the dog yips.
Right.
I have one actually in here that I'm going to show. And you know, it's amazing how many dogs have issues with just, you know, walking or laying down. Dogs that are in the car. My personal dog had been trampled by a horse. So she lays in a pad. She gets panicky in the car, so she actually lays on the pad. I have a pad for her too. So it's really, you know, interesting to
yeah, because I think that's, you know, I mean, we're just recognizing physical therapy for horses, and when it's an athletic dog, like an agility dog, I think they're probably a little quicker because they're seeing a change in performance. But for you know, a lot of pets, I think that's the kind of thing that's not, we don't notice it until it's so severe that something has to be done about it. We do have a question. Oh, explain about the both sides of the pad. Let me just talk about that for a second. So the Physiopad is the only pad that's made from two different materials, two different types of pads that we have. So on this pad here, when you look at it, you see the gray surface. That's a 1/2 inch of the medium material. So it's the same as the violet pads for the horses, the SURE FOOT pads for horses, the medium. We just made it gray because we knew this pad was going to be used by farriers. It was going to be on the ground. We started out with white because that was what was available, and we really quickly went, we've got to change that color. So gray doesn't show a lot of dirt, but it is the same material as the violet medium. The other side of the pad where you see the 1 inch of white-ish color, sort of cream, that's the hard material. And so that's the same density as the hard pad and the hard slant.
Yeah, I found that while grooming that they did not feel as secure with that pad on the table. They would play around with it, but I just found that they seemed to feel a lot more secure with touching the gray material.
And that makes sense to me on a grooming table because it's going to have a little more give and receive them a little more, make them feel more stable. Yeah. This dog looks so curious and happy to be sitting there.
Oh, she is. She's a love. She really is. And wasn't that way when she first started coming in, but after this, she loved her Aunt Susie. Okay, so this is a Bichon that I had done about a year previous to this time, and her pattern still, if you can believe her, she's a matted mess. Her owner had cancer and had died.
Oh.
And one of the caregivers had taken the dog. She didn't know where to find me, and ironically, she was a caregiver in the facility where my dad was in her care. And my dad knew, even through all of that, because he'd seen many matted Bichons before, because that's what my mom raised and bred and showed. She was pretty well known in Bichons. My dad saw him too, so he said, "That's a Bichon." And my daughter grooms them, and they just connected. So this is Tilly, and Tilly had two, both stifles really, really loose, especially the left one. And what's really interesting in the looking at the pictures of Tilly is, here's the next one when I had her done.
Wow,
Big
that's a
difference.
transformation in itself.
Yes. So I was able to keep some hair on her, and she has lovely coat, even for a pet quality Bichon, lovely coat to be able to brush through. But what was really interesting I found with Tilly is that she would take that left hind and take it off and put it back on, take it off and put it back on the pad.
Wow.
And she'd even go to the point of, see how her toe is kind of on there?
Yeah.
So she'd rock her toe on and off of it.
Oh, wow.
And
Look at that smiley face.
yeah, yeah. You can see she, even in this photo, you can kind of see how that area of her stifle kind of pops out.
Mm-hmm.
So they're pretty weak. And she loves the pad. She definitely loved the pad. She was so happy to find me. And then when I put the pad, because I didn't put her on the table with the pad, and I went, okay, I got to get my pad. Put her on the pad, and she just relaxed. So
wow.
Anyway, those are, you can see her just kind of rocking. She would just rock on that edge of the pad.
Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah.
And, you know, and so one of the things that makes SURE Paws, and this is still a SURE foot pad, but it is in the lineup, as opposed to a lot of the other things that are available, like the FitPaws stuff is all air filled, and it's for developing strength and proprioception and that sort of thing. But if you put a dog on something that's air filled and it's a kind of a rounded shape, all the objects have a bit of a round to them, you're actually potentially putting more stress on these joints because they're having to fight with the pushback from the air. And not that there isn't a place for FitPaws, and it's certainly a very popular, there's quite a variety of equipment that they use, but the intention here is completely different in that we're looking at something that's going to give to the dog's weight and give them that same proprioceptive feedback like the horses, and it's instead of challenging them, it's receiving them. It's kind of helping them figure out where they are. So, you know, a lot of people are familiar with FitPaws and their whole thing. And so that's what the primary difference is they're all air filled. And what we're trying to do is provide the same kind of awareness and comfort that we do for the horses. And she clearly got the hang of that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And it was really nice because, you know, trying to go through all of that hair and mats is not easy on a dog. And for the most part, most people would shave them down. But she handled it just fine. I don't think she would have if it were somebody who weren't patient. And I did a lot of Feldenkrais T-touch work with her when she came in. So.
And that's just a lovely combo, is using the T-touches with the pads.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You know, I have the ability to do more, but T-touch is so available, and I can work with other people. In fact, I've helped people. I've sent them to Linda's site. You know, the owners that have pets with physical, you know, limitations, and it really seems to help. They really appreciate it. The owners definitely do too. Okay, so now we have, oh, here's the happy smile.
Oh, there it is. Yep.
Yeah.
And she still got that foot just kind of on the edge of that pad. Yeah.
Yeah, she took it off there. Okay, so then this is a dog that came in for the first time and had been traumatized. So I brought the dog in and put it on the pad. I put the pad on the table, put the dog on the pad first. So I'll replay it again. And you can see the dog looking around, very worried, looking at everything, checked out the pad, shaking. I know that our video is a little bit slower, but the dog has a lot of shake.
Well, and you can just see the concern in their face.
Yeah. Yeah. So then I took the pad away, and you could see the difference in that dog when I took the pad away. See, the hind feet are out, toes are splayed. She's dropped her sternum.
Yeah, much more crouched.
Very crouched, holding her breath, barely taking any. I'll do it again. You can see she just gets way more concerned. And keep in mind, there's loud dryers going on. So
right. And how long did you have her on the pad in the first moment?
The first moment I'd had her on the pad for probably about 5 minutes.
Okay.
And
so then this was when you took her off.
And this is taking her off. So here I put her back on the pad again, and she's sitting. She considers me more. She starts to pant. Ears come back, lick. She starts to think about laying down, but the noose is blocked her. So you see there's a little concern because there's rules about keeping a noose on a dog when they're on a table. You can see the panting more is going, diaphragm.
The face, and there, that the face is so different. Oh, she'd love to lay down, wouldn't she?
Yeah, so I just took the loop down. She thought about it. And you see the difference in just that time. Just in that.
So amazing to me, because to be honest, I've never watched a dog being groomed. Okay. But the difference in the facial expression that you pick up with being on the pad and not being on the pad is, I mean, even though she's got all that hair, you can feel the tension, almost see the tension in the facial muscles between the two. It's, like there, the softness that's come in, and the softness over the eyes, and of course the little more smile in the face. Wow, that's quite impressive.
Yeah, a big difference in her. And she'd been to a groomer previously and came home with a lot of trauma. So she had heard through the grapevine I was doing Feldenkrais and T-Touch, and so she called up the place and requested me. So the owner had. So this is what, I was prepared at least for that. Not all of them come that way. I get them and I'm like, oh, I can't start on this dog. I need to really spend time with them.
Yeah.
So, okay. So now there she is, groomed.
Oh, look at that.
So she's considering me. She's looking to me, more licking, chewing, lick, lick, lick.
Well, it's like she actually had a good time getting her hair done.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the whole time she's just, continually with me.
Yeah.
And it's, it's so rewarding to see the differences in them, to go, oh, I can have a better experience with all of this. And
wow.
See the relaxed tongue this time.
Yeah, well, and the eyes are bright and open, and
yeah,
and the eyebrows aren't all puckery.
Yeah. And her tonus, you can just see her skin looks a lot softer and much more relaxed, even though she's panting. It is all tight. You don't see ribs, and it's a big difference there with her.
Big difference, yeah.
Okay. All right. This was, and you can see this dog was not on a pad. This dog had fallen off a grooming table at another grooming shop. And so she was really insecure.
So if that happens and they have the nooses, are they basically strangling until you get them?
The the noose keeps them on there, but if they get wiggly, and this was a wiggly dog, an insecure dog kind of climbs into you, much like a horse that feels like they need to push on you until you help them out, which I found the slants help with that. But she had taken a tumble off a table. I don't know how it happened, what was the background, but
so yeah, you didn't get a lot of information.
no. So putting her on the regular table, I'll play it again. She's more of an insecure, happy, but very, very stressed over, checking in, can I come on you? Can you come get me?
Right.
The noose is keeping her there. And of course it's hard to take video of it.
Oh yeah.
So then I put the pad down. Oh, and also this dog has, was not a candidate. They were going to have her ACL surgery done, and she would hide her left hind all the time and sit on her left hind. And so she wasn't a candidate because the hip was not strong enough to be able to handle the surgery.
Was so, the left ACL, sorry.
Yes, yeah. So you saw the one without the pad on the table, and I just put the pad on the table, and I did a little work in between with her. So she's checking the pad out with the pad there, and she's resting that hip on that pad. It was really interesting just to kind of observe. And then I'll go to here, and then she's on the pad, she comes off the pad, she tucks one hip.
So she chose that all by herself?
She chose it by herself.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I had to adjust the pad in order for me to, and see, she switched hips.
Yeah, that's what I was just noticing, is that she's not resting on the same hip.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
So now she tucked that hip again. And she's really interesting because it took me a while to get to the grooming. I was late with the grooming, but this was so interesting for her to change from side to side and just consider actually, allowing the left hip to come out.
And so just to clarify, all you did was like place the pad on the table, and then she chose to mess around and switch hips and stay on it and get off. It doesn't look like she wanted to get off.
Yeah. And then I did some work around her sternum. I did some work on her ribs, and I didn't do much of anything on the hind end, just stayed away, just so she knew I wasn't going to go into that area. I worked on occiput, her and down her cervicals, but mostly her sternum. And lots of changes happened. It's just really interesting to see. And then I give her the noose to be able to lay down. And then she was able to come off, feel the pad, come off the pad, go back on the pad. It was really interesting.
Wow. So this is my brain's starting to work. That's dangerous. But I'm wondering if we need to create a pad that's not the whole size of your table, because I'm wondering how important it is for the dogs to be able to move on and off of it, or would it be better to have the whole table covered?
Well, that's been my question for a while, especially with the bigger dogs. So
right, yeah, true. These are all small dogs. Yeah,
I have a couple bigger dogs too. But this is, I'll play it again. The hardest part of it is the dogs are coming to me for grooming, and I'm geeking out over watching movement.
Yeah, but the thing is, and it's like the horses, when you take the time to acknowledge them and to give them a moment to feel feel it out and then feel secure, like the Bichon, when they see you again, they're like really happy and they're going to enjoy the process instead of being fearful of it. And then, which in the end takes so much longer. Like spending the time up front always pays off in the end. You know,
Oh, yeah.
it pays you back in spades. And watching this dog explore, I mean, really explore and check this out, just, you know, just gets my brain going in a 90 miles an hour, you know?
Yeah. 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 It's really interesting just to, you know, to watch and it's like, okay, I'd like to have a space to be able to play with all of this.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering, I mean, the grooming tables themselves, their surface is a pretty rigid, I don't think it's foam, rubber. It's a rubber, right?
it's a rubber on plywood. Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. And so it's going to be a pretty hard surface for one thing. And would not be difficult to actually create a surface, you know, like I'm just thinking, do you really need the inch of hard, or is a ½ inch of medium sufficient to be an inviting place for the dog? Or is it that it is the thick? I don't know. Keep going. Keep going. I know you've got some of the other pads, so I'll shut up.
Okay. Okay. Here's, that's her again. And then there she is laying and trying out. See how she's taking it now to her elbows?
Yeah, wow. So we've got a question from Martha. Hi, Martha. Martha Jordan. I've been working with a very insecure rescue border collie puppy with an injury. I put him on the grooming table and use a loop to help him engage his bane versus curling up every time I touch him. This pad, large enough for a dog his size, about ½ the size of the grooming table, would work for this, even a narrower pad. Yeah, and so we do, this is the half Physiopad. It's 16 by 12, and the full Physiopad is 24 by 16. And I'm just wondering, Martha, if you even just started with a full Physiopad with that dog just to see, it would just be twice the size of this one. It certainly be worth a shot. Oh, you have a potential spam call. Yes, you took a screenshot.
Okay. So, okay, so here's just a little Chihuahua that came in, and by then you can see it was October is when I saw you and I got my pads from you. So
right. So everybody looking at this picture, the purple pad now is the full size SURE PAWS pad. It's 24 by 16 by 1 inch. It's the same material as the horse medium, which is why it's violet. It is the same material on the violet side as what the previous dog, the gray color, was. So, and the slant is 16 by 12, I think it is. And it goes up to 3 inches height at the back. And it's the full slant. We're gonna make a smaller slant to go with the smaller pads, just because this one's like so big. But yeah, cool. All right, tell us the story here, Susie.
So this was just a little Chihuahua that came in, and I found it really interesting that these little dogs really like the slants. Wow. A lot. Really interesting. And most of them have pretty weak hind ends. I would use the slants for doing just basic nail trims, dogs that come in for just nail trims. And so, you know, it's real interesting to find how it's similar to the horses in a different way, but similar. I don't know, that sounds oxymoron, but
no, it doesn't. I get it. It's because I'm so used to horses. I can read the horse really fast. I'm not used to dogs. I haven't had one for so long because I travel so much that they just can't handle it. But it's interesting watching their faces because it turns out I can read them looking at the comparisons you've just shown us.
Yeah.
And you can see how quickly the face changes. I feel like the dog, is that a spaniel in the background? I feel like he's jealous.
Oh, well.
I feel like he's looking this way going, hey, can I have a pad? But the slant goes back to what Robin Shelton Larson said from Australia, who's been doing physical therapy on dogs using the slant, and she can feel the psoas release.
Oh, yes.
So
Yes.
it makes sense to me that this little dog would really find that pleasurable, because like when she's palpating them and working with them, she can feel it. And we can only assume that in horses because they're so big, we can't feel their psoas. But Robin has reported that she really likes using the slants, and for that very purpose, which would kind of help everything out, because the psoas is tied into the diaphragm, and
Right.
on and on and on.
And interesting, when I observe them and I can see all just small muscles starting to just start moving, having little movements happening, and they start to move, and there's the teeniest little sway that happens.
Oh, really? Oh, you've seen
Yeah.
the sway. Oh, wow.
Yeah. Once they find it, and they seek it out, they'll start backing up to try to find or search out to try to find the pad once you've used it. So it's really interesting just to observe, seeing.
Oh, yeah. Like
Yeah.
kind of interesting conformation in front there.
Yes. Yeah.
But is it my imagination, or is that dog standing so much more square behind? Go back. Can you go back?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
looks so much more solid behind. Yeah, maybe not as I thought, but you can see there's a change in the whole base of the neck, shoulder, and wither area between the two pictures. And yes, the dog was looking at us in the first one and not looking at us in the second one, but I still feel like there's something that's changing in the base of the neck.
And this particular dog would just kind of go just like the horses do, just kind of.
Wow.
It was pretty interesting. I didn't get video of it, but
it's okay.
I got photos.
Like I've realized I don't have a lot of pictures when I start with a horse because I'm too busy.
Yeah.
Someone else there standing with the camera.
So this is a golden doodle puppy for its first grooming. Very cute, and they're flopsy. Much the poodle out of them tend to be that way. And this dog was all over the table, and I did a little bit of work on him. Put the pad on. Put him on the pad, and it was hard for this dog for me to step back away to get video, but I asked her to stay.
The table doesn't look as big as I expected it when you step back with the dog. Yeah.
Yeah. So the pad calmed her down. When the pad wasn't on there, she was leaning, searching out anybody to
well, and you can see how, like, even in that picture, like she's got her head so cocked, but all the weight's gone past her front foot, right? Her shoulder weight, her left shoulder's way past her left foot, which doesn't even look like it may have much weight on it. And then she has to counter with her head tilt.
Yes. Yeah. It's real interesting, these puppies. Okay. So
who's the one above that we skipped?
That's Mick J. He the manager of the shop. This is the dog that I do. She requests me to do him, and he's never a happy camper. Not a happy camper to get groomed. He got better as time went on.
Well, it looks like he had his paws. I don't know if you can make the picture bigger, but you see where you can see the imprint of where his paw was.
Oh, yes.
See that?
Yeah.
So it did give to his right front foot.
Yes.
Very clearly.
Yeah. Okay. And that's my dog.
Which one?
That
one.
Yeah. She was in for grooming that day. Okay, oop, go back. So this dog came in with some trauma, very disassociated, and a huge change after being on the pads. I let this dog because it just would hang and hang in the noose, so I didn't want it to hang, even though I offered more to stand, it would hang. So this dog, I just let it sit on the pads for a while, and I took pictures of the dog on the pads. You can see the slants there.
Yep.
And then I brought the slant up and just placed it on there, and the dog put itself on the slant. And I do a little bit of brushing, a little bit of Feldenkrais, and still a little more disassociated. You won't believe the difference in this. Starts to look at me, and then I had the slant kind of offset of the medium pad, the purple pad.
Mm-hmm.
And so that dog was like, take its foot off the pad and onto the slant, and just kept trying it out. So because my table wasn't long enough, I had to move everything to get the slant to sit stable on the table. And I just let the dog kind of mess around with that. And you can see right there.
Oh, yeah.
So we just kept taking that foot on and off. And then there's a grooming after it was groomed, still checking out the slant. And there's the dog.
Wow.
I didn't get video of him before, but you see the difference. I mean, this dog was so disassociated.
Right.
And I just, so interesting to see the difference.
Do you get to see these dogs again?
A lot of them I do, but I only would groom there once a week. And then if I was in Feldenkrais or anything with my dad, you know, I'd have to take the time off. Most people would wait and request. When they request me, they would wait.
Because it's got to be that you really want to see them again after this kind of experience, because
yeah,
you know that it's been a positive experience. He's so cute. Look at those ears, and you really don't want them to be set backwards. I'm sure that you get very attached to the dogs you groom.
Oh yes, I definitely do. Yeah. Okay. So now we have, this dog is Throttle. And Throttle's a beagle, and his dad is a Harley Davidson, owns a Harley Davidson shop. So Throttle went everywhere in his truck. Well, Throttle decided to jump out, and he broke his back. So they didn't really know at first until all of a sudden, about 2 weeks after he came out, because he seemed like he was fine. And about 2 weeks later, he could not pick up his hind end. So Throttle drags his hind end everywhere, and they've tried him with his wheelchair, and that takes some finesse to make that a positive thing.
Yeah.
And but Throttle came in, and he, in true beagle form, that's what he does. Barks and gets panicky. And so he barks so much that when he barks, he throws himself back.
Oh.
So, yeah. And you can see, the video's not showing much there, but I just want to show you the first part. So then I sit down. It's hard for me to video and support him. So, because he'll fall off the table. So I have to support him. But you can see the diaphragm when he barks. He is so tight and constricted at the lower ribs and just at thoracic to lumbar area, which is where the break happened. He's so tight in there. So I did a lot of T-touch and a lot of easy work with his ribs and sternum, and 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 a lot of changes. This dog gets so nervous that he poops and pees all over, which is why there's a towel on the pads.
Well, I was going to ask you about bowel and bladder control with the break.
Yeah, he just, they have a diaper on him, so so I put a towel up so that my pads were protected.
Yeah. And also you can easily just, for anybody that's wondering, the pads will not absorb anything, and you can wash them with soap and water and disinfect them that way. So
yeah, and so the pads, I had the medium pad, and you can see I'm showing the pads. You can see there's the slant is underneath his hind end. And that's when I saw big changes, because I had worked with him before, but then when I got the slant, a big change started happening with that support back there. And
so
you can
somebody asked if the towel inhibited feeling. I think the answer is no.
No, I don't think so. An interesting part too with him is, there's in another video too, is this right hind always would just flop out, flop out. And he started to feel around, even with the towel. He would just start feeling around with that foot. He would bring that foot up. So you can see where I'm pointing out where that area is that's really affected.
Right.
Not a lot of movement. So and this guy, I mean, it's a tough thing for him. You see the expansion of his diaphragm there, and in the video, you can't hear me, but I'm trying to explain where I'm seeing the change. So it's more of I'm bringing awareness to those ribs.
Yep.
And kind of, I started to put in a couple of places more of a constraint on one of his on one side of the diaphragm. Then I go to the other, and in the barking piece of it, and then start to work on those ribs. So that's the configuration that I had under the towel.
Right.
So
yeah, it's tough when your table, looks like you'd like your table a little bigger.
Yeah, I would. I mean, sometimes they get swallowed up by the tiny dogs, but right. Yeah, for
yeah, and you know, that's the thing, is there's always a reason why you want something different, right?
Right. Okay, so this one, photos. This is a puppy, a little terrier mix that came in for his first grooming. And there she is on the slant.
It's so interesting.
On the slant. Likes the
slant.
Out the
angle. Yeah, let's just check out the angle.
Really, really interesting to see that. It was a cute puppy.
Very cute.
Yeah. Oh, and then here's a skipper key mix. Liked the slants too.
That is really fascinating, because I spent a little time with Robin in Australia last October, and she went to work on some whippets, and they were all workhorse performance dogs, and she would set up her table and just have the slant, but they all seem to want to stand on the slant.
Yeah.
Heel high, just like the horses.
Yes, and I would move the dog, or I'd move the slant, and the dog would find the slant.
Interesting.
Yeah. Here's that puppy again after.
Oh, very cute.
Yeah.
And so this slant, for anybody who's watching, it's the yellow top, the firm slant. So we have firm slants and hard slants for the horses. Hard slants are made out of the same as the hard material, and they're colored pink. Firm slants are made out of the same material as the firm pads, which is the charcoal, and are yellow topped. And so the color coordinates with the pad density. And this is a pad that it's the same length, it's the 16-inch long, to match with the large SURE PAWS pad, which you can see there, they match the end to end. And so with the smaller pads, we are now going to produce a smaller slant to match with that because we've decided that that's what we need.
And here's a dachshund. Love the slant also.
Yeah.
I do a lot of nail trims on dachshunds because their nails tend to grow fast and curl a lot. And so trying to get people on a nail trim schedule is can be difficult.
And you do have to watch nails with your pads, because if a dog starts to claw and they have nails, they're going to start ripping up the pads. I mean, that's just one of the things about dogs, is not to let them bite the pads or claw the pads.
Right. Okay. And then I had forgotten my pads, but I had my my full barriers pad. And this was a little dog that had traumatized too. And this was the second time that I'd done this dog. The owner was so happy. And this was the second time I did her. And so I thought, oh, I'll still get my pad out. And hadn't had a pad with her before. So I thought, I'm going to try this and see. I didn't get a picture of what she had done on the pad though, but it was just nice to see her be on the pad. There she is. I flipped it. And
what is she?
They seem to a cockapoo, little mix. Yeah, it's a cute girl. Okay, then this is a Yorkie that has both bad stifles, bad hips, waddled. Its back was roached really a lot. I mean, severely roached. And she spent a lot of time trying to find a way out the door mentally. So having the slant on there allowed her to play around with it. And I moved the slant in many different places. But you can see mentally she was out that the door's right behind her. Mentally out the door. So I moved the slant over into the corner, and eventually she started to seek out the slant. So,
and her back does look really bunchy and tight.
Oh yeah, very much so. Very much so. And she just had a real depressed demeanor. Attitude. And then I moved the pad over to the corner, and she hung out there.
Makes you realize how tiny they are when you see that all 4 feet are on the slant and there's still plenty of room.
Yeah, so a little bit of and then let's see. I came to the other side and took a picture there. She started considering me. I helped her get rid of her eyebrows. This was after her bath, and I started grooming and brought her back, more towards me. And she still checking out the pad. She spent, after her bath and after I started to groom her a little bit more, she would circle off the slant onto the purple and circle back again. So she's circling in this high-low place. But she much preferred it where she was looking. There she is.
Oh, cool. It's so fascinating because it's so cute. It seems in the grooming environment, it seems a little more obvious to me the changes because you're actually having to do something to the dogs, and there's a time frame for doing that. But you're at the same time you're giving them plenty of choice. But it seems like it's a little more condensed, and you can see the effects of it a little bit easier. Like the dogs I've worked with, you know, you just spend a couple minutes playing, you know, having them go over the pads and you give them a break. But here you do have to do something with these dogs. So it's the combination of doing your job, but making your job not only easier, but making it better for the dogs, because they're getting an opportunity to kind of sense themselves and figure out that they're okay at the same time as they're making that association with you of, hey, wait a second, this is a person who's actually considering me.
Well, you know, it's very interesting, just like what Sharon Wilsey says, when you start to, you know, to speak with them in their nonverbal way, and you consider their body language and how they speak to you. And I've been doing this so long that you just kind of intuitively know.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's really hard because as a groomer, you know, you are attached to an outcome. You've got to get the dog groomed.
Right.
And I'm pretty picky. Give me the time I need. And so many people worry about that. You know, we're on the dog's watch, not yours today.
Right.
So if they want somebody else and they're not okay with that, then, you know, I'll pass them up. And if I see the dog needs the time, I give them that time. And above all, you know, you're just searching for the possibilities and searching for the connection and the movement, and giving them the opportunity to let go of the anxiety piece. And I will say there's a lot too of helping the vagus nerve through all of this too, you know, and I have another dog on here that
Oh, great. Yeah. No, this is really fascinating.
So I posted this one on my Facebook page, a Mastiff that came in. And all I did for this dog was nails, and her nails had been done at a vet. And they couldn't get her to the vet anymore. So they had talked to me, asked me, because the manager said, hey, talk to Suzi. So I said, let's try it. I could not do her on the ground. I had to put her on a table because on the ground, she just would flip out and panic and go to flight mode right away. So on the table, here's my video of her. And I can try and slow this down too, but I'll let it kind of go.
You can see she's panting really fast.
Yeah. And you see the tension in her ears. And I had done a little bit of work in order to get her to this point, and to let go enough to back up to take video.
Right.
But she had so much worry. I'll start off with.
Yeah, tons of anxiety.
Yeah, and so look at all the hair. Oh. This is not a dog being groomed. This is a dog that came in to get her nails done. So you see the stress of letting go of all that hair. Now, granted, she hadn't had a bath for a while, but still. This wasn't me getting that hair out of her. This is her shedding hair all over the place. And
but she seems pretty happy to be sitting on that pad.
Oh yes. The more that, you know, I do a little bit of Feldenkrais work on her. I hadn't even touched nails at this point.
Oh, sure, yeah.
That was far from my mind at that time. It was more to help this dog to get to a point where we could get to that. And I did end up getting them done, which I didn't think I would that day. So I'm
almost wondering with this dog if the Farrier's pad, the full Physiopad, might have been better, only because of how I know it helped me.
Oh yeah.
Because the material, this is a little bit springy, especially as an inch, whereas the hard material, after I had that surgery 2 years ago where they had to reattach glute medius, they had to it was 3/4 severed the tendon, so they stitched, and I couldn't stand on my left leg for 3 weeks until I finally was washing my pads to go to Costa Rica, and I just, well, what if I stood on it? I could stand on it for 15 seconds without holding on, where I could not stand at all without holding on to something without that pad. But it has, and if you ever get to see this dog again, that's what I would suggest, is you see if you have that pad with you, if it's a different, because it what we find, and this is kind of, it's going to be a little weird, okay? But I had an intuitive walk over all of the pads. And when she got to the Physiopad, she said it had a very cooling effect. And Robin Hood and I have talked about this many times, because I put a person on that had a head trauma, and she'd had a headache for 2 weeks, and it instantly went away. And Robin put somebody on that Physiopad that had you know, the classic Dowager's hump thing going on, and the person's, without any verbal directive at all, with no directive actually, just stood up straight. And so it has something to do with really giving you a feedback of where your weight is in space, or I don't know, supporting you. It's kind of weird, but we've had a number of kind of interesting things happen with that pad. And looking at this dog and seeing how worried she is, that's what comes to mind to me, is the next time if you see her again, and just see if you have that pad and if there's a difference. I just love to know.
Yeah. Anyway,
but this one still worked, which is awesome. You can see like there on the video how much weight she's putting on that left front.
Yes.
She's got a lot of pressure on it, right? She's really sinking in. And what the Physiopad would do is give to that, but in a way that's not springy. Anyway, but she's definitely checking it out.
Yeah. I really believe that I would not have gotten to the nails had she not had the pads.
Wow. Oh yeah.
So now she starts considering me more. And she starts trying different, her front end, she starts shifting a lot more. And see how her legs start relaxing. She's testing out a little bit more.
Well, and her ribs look softer.
Oh, definitely. And she's got a softer look. And so this is her actually going hello. I mean, she stopped to actually start considering me again. And I think that's the biggest thing I see the change is they start trusting and considering. So, and
that's such a significant thing we see with the horses, is they look that I call it the "who are you" moment.
Yeah.
You know, when they stop and go, "What? Who are you?" You know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And now you can see her softening up more. The jowl starts relaxing more.
So how long, I should have looked at the time of the first photo to this photo, which I didn't do. But roughly, was that, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour?
I gave this, I think she was there a total of about 25 minutes, and the time of the pads was maybe about 10 to 15.
Okay. So really not long, considering how stressed she looked.
No. Yeah, we can go back to the first one.
Yeah, because that was 11:14.
That time was a 1:08
on that one.
Yeah, and our last one was 1:04, and I late to 1:14.
So 6 minutes, really.
Yeah.
No, 6 minutes. 1:08. No, 6 minutes. Wow, that's really not long.
Yeah. It took me a while to get her, when she got on the table, to just, I mean, her nails were like this.
Yeah.
And the table was rocking away, of course they feel unstable. So it took me there's no way I could grab a camera at that time.
No, right, exactly. So even if it was 10 minutes, that's really not that long when you think about it.
Right, exactly. So, and then, then she started to kind of try out, when I did her nails, she was standing on the hind feet were on the slants.
Oh, okay.
So it's really interesting because, they have a backup in them too, where they push back like a horse does. And And so I have used the slant to help that,
Yeah.
and I've learned it to help them find it forward again. They're very similar to a horse that way, I find. So this is just another cute little dachshund that likes the slant.
It's popular.
Yeah, the cute little eyes. What? What's that? And that was Mick J after his when I see he liked the slant too.
Yeah.
There he is.
Oh, very nice.
So this is a Havanese that belongs to a horse friend. Actually, she owns the place where I board my horse, and where I teach out of. So I also groom her dog. And so this Havanese, sorry, I gave her a butt shot, but
Yeah.
um, but this is Cha Cha, and she has a tendency to climb into your lap, and also um, hang forward into the noose. And so the slant really helped her in the front part
Wow.
as opposed to the hind legs.
Right.
So she really does well with this. And nobody have ever groomed her. I was the first one to start grooming her. And so during COVID, I started teaching her mom how to groom her. So that was the video I tried to send you. There she is.
Ah.
That's Cha Cha.
But that's interesting that because you could see on the slant, she was able to kind of find purchase with her front feet to stabilize instead of the chest leaning.
Exactly. I can go back to one of those videos again and see that. She will go back and forth on the table. So what you see, that's why, because I'll move her hind end around, and she would just stabilize from the front end. And she tends to be really stiff and protective of this right elbow.
Mm-hmm.
So, and of course she has splayed out front legs.
Mm-hmm.
So especially one, I believe it's the left. So we'll go back to that one. Yeah, you can see the left one turns out a lot more.
Yeah. She tends
Yeah,
to.
and so the right one, she tucks in a lot more and gets protective of it.
Yeah, well, it looks like that's her supporting leg.
Yes. Yeah.
So, why would you want to give up your supporting leg? It's the thing that's holding you up.
Exactly. Then here was another golden doodle, and she'd had a traumatic experience from a groomer before, and she'd get really panicky with her feet out on the table if I moved, even just to try to clip her. And so you can see now the pad, because she's a big girl.
Yeah.
Pad she's got all of her feet, and she's pretty closed up to stand on that. She would take one foot on and off, but she really liked the pad. And this dog had some growling, testing, don't touch me.
Right.
And finally I was able to acknowledge and even get some tail wagging out of her.
Yeah.
Which was not something this dog did. There she is, wag her tail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting how base narrow she is, right? She wants to stand, even though she could step off the back. She kind of stands like goat on a kind of if it was a horse, I'd start looking at its feet.
Yeah. Exactly.
But that's where I'm just, did you try the slant with this dog?
I did. You can see it was back there, but she kept tucked up.
Right.
And as I actually brought it onto the purple pad more, it was right. It was enough to get to this point.
Exactly. Exactly.
that,
That's what, you know, just looking at this dog, it's like, oh, that slant. I really love that. A, it makes the table a little longer because you can put it off the back there for her back feet. But B, this kind of roach back position. And that was it. I finally remembered the case that when Robin got her horse SureFoot pads, she started messing with dogs, and there was a Saluki, and she actually talks about this in her webinar. There was a Saluki that everybody had looked at this dog and nothing had helped its roached back and its really tight hindquarters until they put it on the slant, and then it just changed.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely would have done a lot more, but it got me enough to get to this point and me running out of time.
Right, right.
Um,
You're there to do a job, and
yeah, and you can see it's February 27th, so it was right before COVID, and
yeah,
we
things
couldn't.
were getting dicey.
Right. So this is the last time I saw this, first and last time I saw this dog. So it would have been nice to experiment some more.
Yeah.
Um,
Hopefully you'll get the chance. Is that the last one you have there?
yeah, I have the video that I can go look for.
I was just going to say, unshare your screen for a minute so that we can actually see you. And because when you go searching for things, yeah, it'll unshare your screen anyway. So
Stop share.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's really interesting. Like, you're there to do a job, and what you're trying to do is help the dogs be more comfortable with that job in relatively short amount of time. And that's what you've got quite a number of dogs here that you've shown us, at least 10, maybe a dozen. And to see the consistency of the same things basically happening over and over, and the consistency of the slants, that's very, very interesting.
Yes.
And
yes.
yeah, fascinating, really
Yeah.
fascinating. So this for me is great because you know, if I see a dog, it's once in a while at a clinic, somebody's got a dog and we walk them over the pads, but to see this sort of concentration of circumstances and dogs, it's really, wow, it gets my brains working, because we've talked about making a pad for the dog grooming table, just, you know, just a sheet. And I don't know how many different size tables there are, or if it's pretty standard sized. We can go research that. We can just Google it and find out. But that, you know, I mean, anything we can do to help the dogs be more comfortable. Let's see. Oh, were any of the dogs that you tried with the pads averse to using them? That's a good question.
You know, much like the horses, I would just have, I think that's what's handy about having the smaller pad is I would just put it there. It'd be like having, you know, my brush on the table, or so, you know, they're just there. I never saw an issue with any dog that didn't consider the pad. They started to get, you know, even laying or being next to it, I would put it next to them, slide it next to them, and they would just start searching it out. I mean, it's kind of like its own draw.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So actually, in a way, having one that filled the whole table wouldn't be good because there isn't the contrast. It's like,
well, I think so, Wendy. I think that having, you know, once you started to bring on the sand on the top, made a difference.
Yeah, having a little bit of grip we thought was really, really important. But
Yeah.
it could also be that if you had two, you could have half the table with the pad, and as the dog has the choice to explore, you could always then add the second half, and so that they had the whole table. Or if you had a large dog, more food for thought. Brad's going to hate me because I'm going to go back and ask for more prototypes. He's the one who gets to write them all up and figure them out and send them to our manufacturer and chase them down and get them. I get them for 5 seconds and go yes or no. That's it. Or send them out to somebody and go, what do you think? Right? But so Suzi, we've kind of run over a little bit. It is 5:22. I think this is plenty. Let me just see. There's a question. Let me just check on this question and see. Were any of the dogs who tried okay, that was this. Yeah, thank you, Barb, for asking it down in the chat, because sometimes I don't get. But just so interesting to see the consistent pattern of, you know, slight exploration, a little more exploration, you know, coming around to it, coming around to you. and how similar that really is to the horses. It's really, really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, the thing is that dogs just have a different way of looking at it than the horses. And then it becomes similar. At the beginning, it's not the same. And especially if there's an agenda involved.
Yeah, sure. That's always the case, right?
Yeah. So, but you know, you start seeing subtleties, and you got to know what to look for.
Right.
And it's been really fun. And I was blessed to work at this facility. So that would open that to me and not make me stay on a crunch time. And
right. Well, and maybe we'll have to talk about maybe taking those videos and editing them a little bit, and editing this and actually creating little stories about the dogs. So I'll be talking to you about that.
Okay.
But this has been really, really interesting. And I'm just really grateful that you collected this, and you could get back and take a picture and the stories about the dogs, and that you've been willing to share that with us. It's been great. It's going to just keep me, like Felice is back there constantly asking me about SURE Paws, and once we get the SURE Foot website really up to speed, we'll be then going into the SURE Paws one. And I've got a lot of work to do, because I've got to get all the marketing materials, the wraps and everything for the pads, just like the horses. And I've been busy trying to get the other things done, but this definitely spurs me on to that project, and make sure, because if we can bring about that much change for people that are willing, and not every groomer is going to be willing.
Yeah. And Feldenkrais takes a lot of time. And the pads just help that along.
Right.
So somebody that doesn't understand or isn't recognizing that, I mean, the pads, once you know what to look for and you offer that and you're just curious about it, I just hope that we can change this industry so there are more dogs that are happy about going to the spa instead of dread it.
Right. Well, and the thing, like everything, it takes some time and some education, but I think more and more people are becoming open to these ideas, and they certainly see it in the horses, and there's a lot of horse people that have dogs. So as we kind of can start moving that direction just from the team that we already have and that we're constantly building. Well, Suzi, thank you so much. This has been an absolute pleasure. If somebody wants to get a hold of you and talk to you more about using pads with dogs, where can they reach you? Can they shout out to you?
Right now I'm in a transition of moving from California to Tennessee.
Oh, you are?
I am.
Oh, okay, I forgot about that. Yeah, but they can find you on Facebook.
Yeah, Suzi Zielinski. I have two sites, but one that has me and a halflinger I'm ponying. So that's the one you can reach out to me, PM me. I'm on instant message too.
And when do you expect to be in Tennessee? When is that move going to be complete?
15th. We move on the 15th.
Of this month?
Of this month, hopefully.
Okay.
Things will
We have to give you a little settling in time to Tennessee.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. All right. Well, we will. And then we'll be back, and you're closer. And so that's great. You're only 10 hours from me instead of across the country when you're in Tennessee.
Exactly.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. And thank you everyone for tuning in. As I said, we don't have the SURE Paws up on the store yet, but if you really are interested, I do have some small, medium pads in stock, and I do have some slants. So just email me at wendy@wendymurdoch.com, and we can just negotiate that out privately through email. And for all of the webinars, please go to the SureFoot Equine YouTube channel. I will post this one there, but I will also post it on the new channel SURE Paws, which we're just starting. So there's not much there right now, but yes, we're getting there, one step at a time. And we'll have more soon. So thank you all for joining me. And thank you, Suzi. This has been great. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Bye.
Bye-bye.